All right. Well, I know we have a few people still hopping on the call right now, but I wanted to go ahead and get started. Thank you guys for joining me today. As always, I just wanted to be able to give back and educate. You know, this industry of home ownership is always evolving. So I think, I don't know if you saw my video last month about property taxes. But we have changes going on all the time, interest rates, property taxes. And today what I really wanted to focus on was homeowners insurance. If you have recently renewed yours, you've probably seen, I mean, even over the past couple of years, we've seen increases, but I really wanted to dive into what is causing the different premium amounts in many cases to go up. We're also seeing there's a bigger variance, I would say. I see, you know, all of my different clients that come to me with their homeowners insurance policy, whether it's a new purchase or in a refinance, just getting that updated. But in the past, it seems like there was less discrepancy from policy to policy, but it is quite different now. And I'm seeing so many different things that some companies are doing to try to, you know, to try to reduce the premiums, and some premiums are just so high. Even some companies completely getting out of the business in Texas. And I think this is the time where we really need to make sure that we're educating ourselves on why is my policy where it's at, or my premium where it's at? Do I have the right amount of coverage? Am I over-insuring myself, under-insuring? Or just missing things. And you don't have to spend a ton of time on this. It's only once a year that you really need to focus on this, but don't make the mistake like I did. I was just telling Haley here that my very first purchase on my home, like almost 20 years ago, I was like, oh, my escrow account pays for this. So I got the bill in the mail, didn't really look at it. All of a sudden I had my mortgage bill came in, and it was like almost $500 increase. And that was all because of my homeowner's insurance policy. I didn't pay attention to it, and it renewed for almost double the price. So just once a year, reach out to me if you have questions about it, and I can forward you over. I personally have my insurance with Royalty Insurance, and that's with Haley here, who's on the call. And I've been with them for years. The awesome thing about them for me is that they're a broker. And what that means is they have access to, like, I don't even remember how many, Haley will tell us here in a minute, but over 20 providers and carriers. So every year when something like this happens, and maybe one insurer, you know, gets out of the business or just has a lot of claims, so their rates go up, then Haley can shop for me and move around and find a different policy that might make sense. Anyway, I don't want you to worry too much, but I want you to be educated and informed. So what we're going to talk about today is what is happening in the insurance world, what's making these premiums go up. And then Haley's going to share a little bit with us about what key things to look for when you're shopping for a renewal. And by the way, if your renewal isn't up, you can change your insurance any time of year. Just talk to me and I'll let you know how that impacts your escrows or anything. Haley may or may not advise that you should change it. You might want to let it wait out if your coverage price is lower, but it's still always good to educate yourself. So I'm going to share my screen now, and we're going to hop into, or actually, let me just let Haley introduce herself real quick, and then I'll do that.
Perfect. Hey, y'all. I am Haley Pescator. I am with Royalty Insurance, as Tracy had mentioned. We are a broker, and we work with over 30 A-rated insurance carriers. So our goal really is to make your life super easy, do the insurance shopping for you. So that is one less thing that you have to worry about. We are huge on education. So maybe you want a lower premium, and the way to get there is reducing coverage. As long as you know that and are educated on what is in your policy, what your deductible amounts are, things like that, it is totally up to you. You are protecting one of the largest assets. So we want to make sure that you are definitely educated on what's included in your policy. And that's kind of what we're going to jump into today.
Awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and share the screen. Let's see. Here we go. All righty. There we go.
Perfect.
So we're gonna hop in. That was just the first one. We're gonna hop into this now.
Perfect. So yeah, just to kind of touch on where we kind of are in the market and what causes insurance premiums to be so high. So just kind of touching on and we'll get a little bit more into this, but wind and hail, it is the number one cause of loss in the state of Texas. I think everybody's pretty familiar with it if you've been here for a while. We do get wind and hailstorms that come through multiple times a year. And those are kind of what we're going to call catastrophe losses or acts of God. So kind of touching on that, that's not necessarily, we'll jump into that a little bit later too, but not necessarily going to impact premium unless frequency becomes an issue. The freeze claims from 2021, that February storm that we were not prepared for, pipes were bursting. There was large amounts paid out to repair damage from sometimes entire floors were having to be replaced because the water was just sitting there. We couldn't get heat to the home. So we're used to the wind and hail claims. Frequency is probably definitely picked up in those, but we weren't as used to freeze claims here in Texas. That's not really something we were familiar with. And then since February 2021, that has become more of a concern, I think. And then of course, a little bit of the inflation. Not all of it again has to do with inflation, but the costs of materials have gone up. There's shortage of labor, so labor is harder to get, so it's going to be more expensive. Supply and demand issues, right? So on these bullet points, you can kind of read a little bit too of like in 2022, overall cost rose 4.7%. Which doesn't necessarily match with the rate increases that we're seeing because they are pretty large. But it's to go back and check with your agent, like, hey, what is causing this? Sometimes it's if you filed a claim, then you're going to see that impact on your renewals. Sometimes it has nothing to do with claims that you're filing because insurance is kind of a big pot of money. So you have to pull from that, from the carrier has to pull from that, from you paying those premiums in to pay out others' losses too. So that's a little bit of a factor in it. I think we could go to the next slide. So again, to kind of touch back on wind and hail because it is such a big loss in Texas. So there's the things that you really want to focus on, making sure that your home has this is replacement cost coverage. So replacement cost coverage is going to be higher premium than if you were to have an actual cash value. I see clients who want to shop their insurance. They don't even know that they have an actual cash value settlement or a payment schedule on their home policies. So bringing it to their attention. Some people are okay with it. Some people don't even know they have it. So the difference between them. So replacement cost coverage, you're out of pocket, whatever your, let's say wind and hail deductible is, and then insurance will come and replace your roof for anything over and above that up to the limits listed in your policy. Actual cash value or a payment schedule on the flip side of that is going to be lower premium because your out of pocket cost is going to be more. So you're going to be out of pocket your wind and hail deductible. And then they're based off of the age of the roof at the time of loss. They're going to take the depreciated amount and you are also going to owe that as well. So it's not full replacement cost. So again, out of pocket more money each year that goes on. So your premium's going to be lower. So you can't really compare shopping a replacement cost roof versus an actual cash value roof. And in Texas, if a roof is over 15 years old, a lot of policies are going to have it go towards an actual cash value settlement. And then just to kind of touch on wind and hail deductibles. So a lot of times you're going to see the lowest that you can have is a 1% deductible, and it's 1% of whatever your dwelling amount is at, not the 1% of what the loss is going to be. So that some people get a little confused on that. And then if you wanted your premiums to be lower, or sometimes, and certain carriers are changing towards a minimum of a 2% wind and hail deductible. So just really knowing what your deductible is, because if you do need to file a loss or a claim, then just knowing that you're going to be well above your deductible to avoid kind of a zero paid claim. And that's where I think talking with your agent is huge on that. And then
Can
just
I
to
ask
kind
a
of
quick
touch on,
question about that, Haley, real
yeah,
fast? So on the deductible, so you have the one or sometimes usually for wind and hail, I think it's 1 or 2%. I think is probably the most common, right?
yes.
Is there a standard that usually your insurance goes up $500 if you go from 1 to 2, or is it different for every carrier?
It's different for every carrier. Sometimes I'll see just a few $100 difference. Sometimes I'll see $1,000 difference.
So
It
it's
really
good to
just
really
depends.
ask. Okay, so it's good to ask that question just to know.
Right,
Okay,
to see if you want to, like, does the cost outweigh what you're going to be paying for out of pocket? Because hopefully your roof's
okay.
going to last you
Hmm.
7-10 years maybe. And I know in Texas it's a little bit iffy, but that's kind of where this cosmetic exclusion comes in too. You'll see that a lot more on metal roofs, not so much like your shingles, the composition shingles. But cosmetic exclusion endorsement just says, like, if there is no damage to the integrity of the roof and it's just strictly cosmetic, we're probably not going to replace it. And it's probably not a good idea to replace it, just because, again, those frequency of filing claims can become an issue for eligibility. And then this is huge. So yes, we all kind of know about wind and hail and those losses. I'm sure if you've been in Texas and had home insurance for a while, I'm sure you've probably gone through the process of filing a claim for wind and hail. So that's a little more familiar. What may not be as familiar is water damage. So being a broker, again, we get to see multiple products, because every home insurance carrier and policy, you can't really do, we really try to avoid saying apples to apples comparison. Like, there's not one policy in Texas that's really the same on home insurance side of things, because some may have these endorsements, some may not. So this water damage is the number 2 cause of loss in Texas. So sudden and accidental water damage. So that is what majority of the claims were paid out from the freeze, because the cause of loss was very sudden and accidental. It was due to pipes freezing and bursting, right? So you come home and there's water everywhere. You do whatever you can to remediate it. But I think it was taking a while because so many people were experiencing it, and then you couldn't get heat back on for days, that sort of thing. So most policies in Texas are going to automatically include sudden and accidental water damage, usually up to your dwelling limits. So say your home is insured for $400,000, sudden and accidental water damage is typically on your policy for $400,000. The next option or endorsement is the seepage and leakage. So all the rest of the water damage losses that we see typically have to be endorsed on your home policy. So again, if nobody's ever talked to you about it, you may not know if you have it or if you don't. So seepage and leakage is kind of like sudden and accidental water damage, but it has, typically policies will state if it's been going on for 14 days or more, then it becomes seepage and leakage, which is a slow leak that goes on over a period of time that goes unnoticed. So typically from plumbing or appliance related. And then foundation water damage endorsement. So this one is a little misleading because it doesn't cover for natural settlement due to dry conditions. No insurance carrier in Texas is going to cover for that type of foundation. Like if you have to come in and correct your foundation from shifting, put piers in. No insurance in Texas is going to cover for that, or home insurance policy, because it's such a common occurrence, right? But what this is if you have like a leak below your slab and you have to dig through your flooring to get to that leak to stop it, it's not going to pay to stop the actual leak, because that's usually the minimal cost in all of it, but it'll pay for the resulting damage of you putting back into place your flooring and things like that. Again, this has to be added by endorsement. So if nobody's talked to you about it, maybe check your policy, see if it's on there. May not be an option to endorse it. Again, some carriers may not offer it, but at least worth checking it out. And then water backup. This one is, again, have to endorse it, but if a sewer line breaks and causes toilet water back up through your toilets and gets all over the place, it'll help repair that flooring, damaged baseboards, things like that. And then touching on how claims impact your rate. So I think, I mean, you don't know what you don't know, right? So being in the industry, I run clue reports every day. I see how people file claims, and things like that. And so insurance is a transfer of risk. If they see that you are filing claims every year, if they're zero paid, it doesn't necessarily matter. So frequency and the unnecessary claims is those zero pays that I'm talking about. So being with a broker, a lot of times we like for our clients, if it's a non-emergency claim, to reach out to us so that we can be your sounding board. We can be your education. We can say, hey, this is what your deductible is in case you forgot. I mean, you got home insurance, what, 2 years ago? I probably wouldn't remember exactly what my deductible would be. So we like to go over the deductibles and make sure that your claim is going to be well over that, to repair, to make sure that it's going to make sense for you to file. Frequency. So say like every hailstorm that comes through, I'm like, oh, I need an adjuster out. My neighbor just got their roof done. I need to check and see if mine is damaged enough. Well, if you have, some carriers are saying if you have 2 or more of the same loss type in the last 3 to 5 years, then you're not eligible. Well, that's not really fair. You didn't pay anything out while they're seeing your trend of filing a claim. So you're more likely to file any sort of claim, whether it is paid out or not. So that's where we really try to avoid you calling the insurance carrier directly and getting an adjuster out, because once that adjuster's out, the claim is open, whether it's paid or not. You can't get it removed necessarily.
Can I ask a question about that, Haley? Sorry.
Yeah.
So if you file the 2 claims, let's say you're with the same care provider you've been with for 5 years, and you have now your second claim, can they drop you that following year?
Probably not for like catastrophe losses, which are going to be like the wind and hail, the acts of God. Those sorts of things are going to be catastrophe losses.
Okay.
Now, if you have like water claims, a lot of insurance carriers kind of freak out a little bit more about that, because then they're like, uh-oh, like, did we really get the issues fixed? Did we really do that? And sometimes it's really unavoidable. So I don't know that they necessarily can drop you once you have them for 2 claims in 5 years or 3 years or whatever it might be. But just switching insurance carriers at that point would be a little tough, I think, in the market that we're in.
Okay, thanks.
But I think I kind of touched on a lot of those, just as far as really just getting the education of what my deductible is, having a reputable contractor, having a reputable roofer, having a reputable plumber, whoever come out and give you the estimate to, again, make sure, is this something I can maybe cover out of pocket, rather than filing a claim, sticking that on my claims history or record for the next 5 years. So really, and that's kind of where it comes into the deductibles. Do you really want to carry such a low deductible because it's more enticing to file a claim then, right? Whereas if you're more comfortable in your financial situation of, okay, maybe I can be out 2%, or maybe I can be out whatever it might be, then I'll just take care of the claim myself rather than filing one, or the issue to get repaired myself. And then the discounts you may be eligible for. So just kind of quickly, I guess, touch on these. New homes, the newer the home, sometimes the better the rates, because you're probably not likely going to file a claim in the first 5 years or so with a new construction home. Hopefully no issues happen. A lot of times there's builder warranties and things like that too. The age and quality of the roof is huge, obviously, because we did talk about that wind and hail loss being the #1 loss type in Texas. So the newer the roof, typically the better. And then there are things, some carriers offer this, most I would say do, some don't though. Whenever you have like a class 4 roof, which is just that high impact shingle, it's not as likely to get damaged, but you will get a certificate from the roofing company stating like this is a class 4 shingle, and that will be required to keep those discounts applied. Whenever you put multiple lines of business, so say your home and auto, so otherwise known as bundling, those are going to give you better discounts typically. But again, as a broker, we like to look at the overall picture and make sure that that does make sense, because sometimes auto insurance is a lot higher than maybe a different carrier, but the home insurance is more favorable. So just again, being with a broker, we can manage kind of all your policies and make sure that you are getting the best discounts and the most competitive premiums with or without bundling. But a lot of times that's going to give you the biggest discount on the home insurance side of things. Water shutoff valve, that's something you can get installed just to detect if there's going to be a leak, or a lot of times if you go out of town a lot or travel for work or something like that, those things are smart to have. And a lot of times just check with your carriers or your insurance agent and say, hey, is this a discount that we can get applied for? Because there may be certain certificates required to show proof, things like that. Gated community. So obviously it's harder to get into a gated community if you don't have code, or if there's a security guard or things like that. So those can be discounts. And then monitored alarm. Sometimes they're small, sometimes they're large. So definitely get it for the safety aspect, not necessarily insurance discount all the time, but you can, if you already have it for the safety aspect, then I would definitely check into seeing if there's discounts for monitored fire, monitored burglar, and that's going to be through like a Smith-Thompson, ADT, things like that. Again, we'll have a certificate to provide to the insurance carrier to show that you are avoiding those situations or having somebody come to the rescue if somebody breaks in or things like that. So just being a responsible homeowner will definitely help the cause for insurance premiums, because we all know those are fun.
Right. Haley, do you think that a lot of people get home warranties in addition to their home insurance when they're first buying a home, but they might not necessarily keep a home warranty year after year? Again, just the expense of it. But in your experience, as it compares especially to home insurance, is it and it may not be a fast rule that yes or no, but do you see that it's helpful and beneficial to have a home warranty that maybe then offsets some of the claims that you might have on your homeowner's insurance?
Yeah, because really home warranties are more of like a maintenance policy, I would say, rather than a home insurance policy. So
Okay.
I think kind of in this tough market with such high premiums, we do have to start changing our perspective on home insurance and what it is. kind of like health insurance. Like I know I can speak for myself. Like I carry a high deductible plan for health insurance because I don't necessarily plan on using it all the time, or I hope I don't have to. So it's kind of like home insurance. Like, do I want to file all these claims and it impact my premium, or is it something that's smaller that I can pay out of pocket for? So I think home warranty, like, and typically no home insurance carrier is going to cover for things like a home warranty would necessarily, as far as like, let's say that you have a sudden and accidental leak from your dishwasher or something. You've been out of town for 2 days, you come home, there's water everywhere, it's been sitting on the floors, things like that, whatever it might be. Well, the actual appliance is not going to be covered on your home insurance, because the resulting damage of what water loss was caused, that's what home insurance is going to cover for. So it's really kind of up to the client's discretion whether they want to carry it or not. But it's definitely totally different as far as like a maintenance policy versus kind of a catastrophe policy.
Got it. Awesome. Well, unless you had, we don't have any comments in the chat. I forgot to mention to people you can put a comment in, but I will still, after this, I'll send out this recording to everybody, and I will send Haley's information to everybody as well. But I think overall, the main thing to just learn from this discussion is to just keep yourself educated annually, and make sure that you're paying attention to what's happening on your specific policy, and understanding if there are other things out there and other policies that might make more sense for you and your family, at renewal time. So anyone can feel free to reach out to myself or Haley with other questions. Haley, do you have anything else you wanted to chime in about, or is that pretty much it?
I think that's pretty much
Okay.
it. I think just kind of touch on the importance of a broker is, again, we get to work for you and not the carrier. So you're our number one focus, wanting to find out your needs, your wants. Sometimes those don't always align.
Right.
But again, we're just huge on education. As long as you know what's in your policy and are well educated on that, that is what we are happy with. So just being able to be a wealth of knowledge and know multiple products and things like that to be able to share with our clients and say, hey, this is what's going on in the industry. We're dealing with it ourselves too. Those high increases, things like that, but just giving you peace of mind, at least, to say, hey, we've shopped multiple products. You are with the best carrier for the best premium, or hey, this is a good option for you. So that's really what we're here for. We appreciate Tracy. So
No, and I appreciate you. I mean, like I said, I've been with you guys now for I think at least 5 years, but surprisingly, before I moved over to learn about the broker side of things, I was always with the big name carriers, which sometimes they are the best because you still work with some of them, like the Allstate or whatever,
right.
But I just always thought that's who I should go with. But I learned that you sometimes have better coverage and better experiences, even with some smaller name companies. I mean, I was with a couple companies that I had never even heard of before, but when I looked at their stats, their reviews, and heard from you guys, and what I was paying, it was great. And the funny thing is, I've been with probably 3 different providers in the past 5 years based on what you guys, were able to shop for. And bundling helps a lot, but I didn't always have, some of the years I had my auto and home in the same place, and some years I didn't, because like you said earlier, the discount wasn't enough to offset the premiums that I was going to be paying to stay with one or the other. So again, it's just all about educating yourself, and just take that time once a year when your insurance renews, at least, to really dig into it and see, are you in the right policy with the right deductibles and paying the right premium? So anyway, thank you so much, Haley. Thank you everyone for joining us today. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks so much. Bye,
Thanks,
guys.
Tracy.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.